Hey, Warpugs. So, today, I was just sitting here minding my own business, and Val came in and was like, hey, boss, guess what you should do? And I was like, alright. And she threw this in front of me. And then the cat
You,
started fighting at my feet. Yes.
oh,
Would y'all
they're
stop it?
hissing.
Can y'all knock it off, please? For 5 seconds. Angry cats, I'm telling you. Just hateful. Just rageful. In any case, so, Thanksgiving during World War II. I remember what Thanksgiving was like when I was in the military. I was in the Navy for 6 years, and y'all were completely quiet until I hit record. I swear they just wait on it. They just wait on me to do this. Anyhow, I was in the military for 6 years. I never got home for Thanksgiving. Never once got home for Thanksgiving. And some of my Thanksgiving meals were utterly depressing because I would call home for Thanksgiving at one of the worst times period for me. One of the worst times period for me. I was on the ship. I had to stand pier duty, and that meant I had to be on the end of the pier with a rifle in Norfolk in November, and it was a decidedly cold winter. Snow was already falling, and it was wind coming in from the Hudson is not exactly polite. Like, wind coming in is not polite to you at all.
So it feels like frostbite on your hands.
It is horrific. And I remember right before I went on watch, right before I was supposed to go on watch, I went up and I called my mother and my brother who were sitting down, and I said hey to them and said hey to my dad and everything like that. And apparently a couple of my uncles were there with their kids and my cousins and all this other kind of stuff. Everybody was there. And then as soon as I got off the phone, I went down, had my wonderful Thanksgiving dinner of a turkey sandwich, a cold turkey sandwich with just bread and turkey, because that's all that was being served that day. And then I stood at the end of a cold, dark pier for 4.5 hours because the person that came to relieve me was late. Now,
oh, that sucks.
I can tell you that as far as depressing goes, there was nothing more like as far as like absolute like God I miss my family days went. That was one of the worst ones for me because I was just sitting there at the end of a pier in below freezing temperatures in a dark little guard shack, just knowing at that time my family was sitting down, like, because they said we're going to sit down in about 30 minutes, and about 30 minutes after I said bye, I was walking down that pier, and I knew my family would be sitting there. They'd be watching A Christmas Story. They'd be, eating. They'd eat dinner. They'd all sit down, watch Christmas Story. There'd be games and all this other kind of stuff. And there I am at the end of the pier.
At least you had some, like, I don't know, fries or potatoes.
No company. Like,
and
just a chicken sandwich. I mean, just a turkey sandwich. No, nothing. Plain white bread, sliced turkey breast, then sliced. And that was my Thanksgiving in 2006. And I can tell you there have been few more depressing times in my life. But let's take a look at this and see what a military Thanksgiving during World War II was like. And this
probably
is
even more sadder.
This is Tasting History with Max Miller. And we're going to check this out. And looking at this, the USS Iowa, snowflake potatoes, mashed sweet potatoes, new peas and butter, hot cheese biscuits, old-fashioned mince pie.
That sounds like a lot better than what you had.
Yeah, the third item down sounds like something I had. Essence of tomato bouillon lemon saltines. We didn't even have the lemon saltines or the bouillon. We just had the essence of the tomato and the saltines, and that's pretty much
Yeah.
it. All right, let's get into this. Here we go.
Menu from the battleship USS Iowa during World War II. Now, at first glance, it seems pretty standard. But when cooked on a battleship, traditional dishes like these might not be exactly what you're used to. So I'm
Might not be is the understatement so far.
going to make a few of these dishes
Might
using
not what
recipes
you're
from the
used to.
1945 cookbook.
Old man out in
the
the winter.
cookbook, the cookbook of the United States Navy, otherwise known as the instrument used in the black sites for the CIA to feed prisoners to get them to talk.
Book of the United States Navy. So thank you to Babbel for sponsoring this video as we make Thanksgiving from World War II. This
Let's
time
go.
on Tasting History.
This makes your Thanksgiving dinner look like a fucking Michelin star restaurant.
Just shoot me. Just shoot me.
Come across numerous menus for World War II era Thanksgiving dinners both from the Navy and other parts of the military. And except for a few dishes here and there, they're all pretty similar. One description from a Thanksgiving dinner on the USS Iowa said the dinner served piping hot was a marvel in quality and quantity. Turkey noodle soup, saltines, roast tom turkey, oyster dressing, candied sweet potatoes, snowflake potatoes, giblet gravy, French peas, cranberry sauce, buttered asparagus, quartered lettuce, Thousand Island dressing.
Now this sounds like a typical Saturday for somebody in the Air Force, so...
Ripe
In the
olives,
chair
sweet
force?
mixed
In the
pickles,
chair
hot
force.
Parker House rolls, butter, coffee, pumpkin, ice cream, fruitcake, cigarettes.
Now the last part sounded like the best part of my Thanksgiving dinner. For 6 years, that was the best part of my Thanksgiving dinner, the
Turkey
cigarettes.
sandwich and cigarettes.
Turkey sandwich, tepid coffee, and cigarettes. Here you go.
Cigarettes actually appear on pretty much every Thanksgiving Day menu from the time.
They got
now, I don't
cigars?
smoke, so no cigarettes for me.
Yup.
Instead, I'm going to focus on 3 side dishes.
Get yourself, if you're a good kid, you get the Lucky Strikes. If you're not, you get the Camel non-filters. That's how. Like that's back in the day. These days, you actually go out and buy your own stuff.
Well,
you know,
Oh man, look.
huh?
Oh man, you're looking at that fucking camel like it's a Michelin star restaurant versus the sandwich that you were eating.
We had people. Oh my, nah. To be honest with you, it's bad when you consider MREs a delicious break from your norm.
The cranberry sauce, candied sweet potatoes, and oyster dressing. And these recipes tend to use some
Bro, that looks
unorthodox
good.
ingredients
It
and
does.
methods because they had to. They were feeding thousands of crew members at sea. Powdered eggs, powdered biscuits, powdered this and powdered that.
Have you ever had powdered everything?
No, wait, have you?
Um,
Because I think powder, like, you know, like the powdered sugar you put on breading, that's what I think. Like that white fluff.
no. So basically, it's hard to rationalize this stuff. It's freeze dried and powdered, and then they pour water on it, mix it together, and then basically it's reconstituted everything. So
Oh, that's sad.
like you can like there was one time, and like don't get me wrong, the mess chefs, when they could actually do something, like they had some times where the mess chefs were allowed to just like 3 times the mess chefs on board our ship were allowed to just make a dish and make something the way they wanted to make it using the spices they wanted to make. Like, I don't knock the mess chefs on board my ship, because like, especially the I can't remember the guy's name, but he had a cockeye and all this other kind of stuff. He was like kind of cross-eyed. That dude could cook. He could cook, but you have to follow the regulations every other time. And so while you know, at times they sit there and let them like bring in actual eggs. Okay, I'll tell you the difference between an egg omelet made out of eggs and an egg omelet made out of powdered eggs, your sanity. That's it.
You'd have
Yep.
scrambled eggs. You never saw an egg that you could look at and say, oh boy, there's a yolk.
Yeah,
it was all powdered. We did have a good Thanksgiving dinner, though. I don't know where they got the turkeys. They must have been frozen. And while I won't be using powdered eggs for anything,
man,
I will need
imagine
things
having
like dried
turkey at
sweet
least.
potatoes, canned
Nah.
oysters, and while the cranberries will be fresh, the sauce at the end tends to be more like something you'd get out of a can. Also, that man who was talking about the frozen turkeys during Thanksgiving said that in 1944, the USS Iowa crossed the international date line on Thanksgiving, and so they actually got 2 Thanksgiving dinners back to back. That is
Nice.
one thing about being in the military. You
Man,
do get to
that
travel a lot.
sounds kinda
Something made
nice.
far more enjoyable when you actually speak the language of the place that you're going, with a little help from today's sponsor, Babbel. As one of the top language learning apps in the world, you can get started speaking a new language with Babbel in as little as 3 weeks.
I'm gonna learn Filipino just so I can talk to you, Val.
Talking my language. It's
Yes.
almost like it's World War II again and you're in the Navy coming to the Philippines learning Tagalog.
Do you remember, like, in me, I'm already syllabically challenged, so that would be even funnier.
Now, you won't be
So I could learn Tagalog, like I called it the first, like, I can't pronounce anything.
fluent, but honestly, you don't need to be fluent to get some of the benefits of learning a new language. Like a few months ago when I was in Austria, even having a basic knowledge of German made it so much easier to navigate my way through the streets and order the many, many pastries that I ate. Ich möchte alle die
that
Torten
looks
bitte.
super
I will
nice.
take all of the cakes, please. And one thing I really like about Babbel is with their quick 15-minute lessons. Ich wohne in der Millerstraße 6. I can spend 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. It
In
just
the
makes
what?
it a lot easier.
I have no idea.
I will pronounce that as war her comps do.
I have no idea.
To tackle. And to really supercharge your language learning skills, Babbel now offers live lessons, and you get 2 free live lessons with your subscription plus a 20-day money-back guarantee. And right now you can get 60% off of your Babbel subscription with their Black Friday sale by clicking the link in the description or hitting that QR code on the screen. That's 60% off of your subscription when you use my link in the description. Now let's make some cranberry sauce.
Well, War Pugs, if you ever decide that you'd like to learn another language so you can curse at people in Call of Duty lobbies in a different language, there you go. The link will be in the description below.
Curse people in German.
I don't ever want to be put in a position where I'm screaming at somebody in German.
Sauce, or rather molded strained cranberry sauce.
Oh,
Pick
joy.
over cranberries, wash, drain, add water. Heat to boiling temperature. Cook until all the skins pop open. Strain through fine sieve, stir in sugar, heat to boiling point, cook 5 minutes, skim, pour into molds or pans, chill until firm. Now this recipe, as with all of the Naval Cookbook recipes, make a ton of food, about 100 portions. This one makes, I think, 10 pounds of cranberry sauce. So I'm going to cut back on the ingredients, but I'm going to keep the proportions for all of the recipes exactly the same. So for this, what you'll need is 1 pound of cranberries, 1 pound of sugar, and 2 cups of water.
That's a lot
Give the
of
cranberries
sugar.
a wash and then drain them, then add them to a pot with the 2 cups of water and bring to a boil on the stove. Let them boil for a few minutes or until all of the cranberry skins have popped open. Then set a sieve over a second pot and pour the cranberries and water into the sieve. Start pressing as much juice out of the berries as you can. The liquid will go right through, as will some of the finer pulp, so make sure you scrape that into the pot as well. That's most of the flavor. Once you got all the cranberries strained, add the sugar, stir it in, and set that
That's a
over a
lot of
medium-high
sugar.
heat and bring it to a boil.
That's a
Let
lot
it
of
boil
sugar.
for 5 minutes and then pour it into a pan. Actually, the recipe says you should skim it and then pour it into a pan. I forgot to, so I poured it into a pan and then skimmed it, and it turns out it doesn't matter the order. Also, the recipe says that you can use a pan
So doesn't the ingredients in Navy food say?
or a mold, and you could even put it like into a can so you get that canned cranberry shape. It's just going to take a lot longer to cool. Even this very thin layer in a pan took me 12 hours to chill in the refrigerator until it was nice and firm. As for the candied sweet potatoes, what makes this recipe rather different from your standard candied sweet potatoes is that it uses dehydrated sweet potatoes. The thing is, I'm not sure
I hear that word. My soul collapses.
Oh no.
How do you
Not-
dehydrate a sweet potato?
Sure to what degree
You
they were
do.
dehydrated, but I could only find one type of dehydrated sweet potato online, and they come in slices, and the recipe says that they should be in slices that you leave whole, so I kind of figured I was on the right track. So for this recipe, what you'll need is 1 2/3 pound or 755 grams of dehydrated sweet potatoes, 2.5 cups or 500 grams of sugar,
My God.
1.5 teaspoons of salt, and 1 stick or 113 grams of
Man,
butter.
the
So first,
military
soak the
back
sweet
then
potatoes
needed
in
their
water
sugar.
for about
Jesus
an hour, and then
Christ.
put them in a
Like MREs are nothing but carbs. Like MREs are nothing but carbs.
But isn't that what you need to even
Yes.
like?
Yes, it's food to keep you going at a high level for a long period of time.
It's like you're going on high octane.
Yes. Like, that's what that stuff is for. And Navy food is meant to keep you as depressed as possible for as long as possible.
pot with
It's like I'm fully convinced that my ship was an experiment to see how long it would take until you cracked.
2 quarts of
I love my fucking boat. I love my boat. I absolutely did. I still love it to this day, and I still remember it so fondly. But good God Almighty, it's just one of those things where you're just sitting there like, please tell me why we're doing this again.
of water and
I
bring to a
bet you
simmer.
they even
Let them
added MSG in there just to make you feel less depressed about what you're eating.
No, they wanted you to feel the pain. Oh God, one of these days I gotta tell you about times we'd have lobster and steak.
simmer for
Like, because if we had lobster and steak, we already knew we were in for it. If we had lobster and steak, it was pretty much a guarantee. And don't ever, if you went on board our boat, don't ever eat the gumbo because you're gonna be seeing it later. Like, because
Oh god. So it's like Chipotle but
like
worse.
no, the gumbo on board our ship, like people would see it and new people would come to the boat. Oh, you guys get gumbo when you're underway. It's like, yeah, it's really good too. It's actually really good, and it actually really was. The problem is, gumbo isn't a food that you eat and get on a roller coaster. And guess what's happening if we serve gumbo?
Oh boy.
You're gonna find yourself like. You're going to figure out real quick if you got sea legs or not, because you're going to be in 35-foot seas, and that's a lot of sea.
for about 30 minutes until they're nice and tender, and then drain them, saving the liquid. Now, you're going to use this liquid to make the syrup. The thing is, I think there's too much liquid. The recipe says how much there should be at the beginning, but it doesn't say how much there should be by this point. So more could have steamed off, or the potatoes could have been even more dehydrated than the ones that I had,
Probably.
which would have soaked up more liquid. I honestly don't know, but I think it might be too much liquid, so I might just use half of the liquid to make this syrup if you're gonna make it. I used the full amount, and it just kind of made a bit of a watery syrup. Either way, mix the sugar and the salt into the water and set it over medium-high heat and bring to a boil. Then let it boil for 5 minutes while you butter a baking dish and line it with the sweet potatoes. And the recipe says to leave the slices whole, so don't be tempted to mash them up. Then once the syrup has boiled for 5 minutes, pour it over the potatoes. And here you can see that I have made way too much syrup for this amount of potatoes, which really leads me to believe that they were more dehydrated
Oh, yeah.
potatoes, but
Like, I'm guaranteeing you, if my experience was any indication, by dehydrated, they mean you could use it as ammunition if you carved it down. Enough,
You
okay?
can toss it at a person across a room and it counts as like a concoction.
Yeah, like, dehydrated sweet potato, I'm guessing that thing was the size of a pea. And it would expand, like, yeah.
You
I
could
don't
put
think-
that pea, like if you dehydrate a pea, you could put that in like a bullet and it'll count as like a ammunition.
Like, there were times that you'd eat something, that we would eat something, and, like, you'd feel it going down your stomach, and it was so dense that you felt like a black hole was just opening up inside of you.
couldn't find them, so I did what I did. Then put the butter on top and set it in the oven
My
at 350
God.
degrees Fahrenheit, 175 Celsius for 30 minutes. So these sweet potatoes are done in a syrup, but I have to ask, do you like marshmallow on your
Yes.
sweet potato?
Yes.
Personally, I actually prefer like a streusel on top, but my Nana made them with the marshmallow on top. And so it just conjures these memories of wonderful family Thanksgivings when I was a kid.
Ah,
And
yes.
Yeah.
The
for me,
U.S.
and I think most
Navy
people,
will
that's actually
remember
what
all the
Thanksgiving
food
is
that they're
all about.
eating.
Like, if you're in the Navy watching this and you're stuck on a ship, I have been there, I understand.
out. It's less about the food itself and more about the memories
Yeah.
and the family
He's right.
during that time of year.
Old man
And that's
outside
why
eating
I
a
think it was so
sandwich.
important
Shut up. That was such a bad time in my life. I was so depressed, you have no idea.
to the U.S. government during World War II to make a commitment to supply Thanksgiving turkey, cranberry sauce, and pumpkin pie, American food for the American soldier in England, Iceland, India, Australia, in Malayan jungle and African deserts. Wherever he is fighting in this global war, the Army endeavors to feed him the food he likes, the food that makes him feel at home.
That sounds all well and good in a press release. Time for history. Yes.
I love reading the first-hand accounts of people's experiences during major world events like World War II, because even with the abject horror going on around them, people tend to grasp on to the happy moments that they do encounter. And for so many American soldiers during World War II, one of those moments was Thanksgiving dinner, even if the food that they were getting was not like the stuff they had back at home.
Right.
You remember all of your early Thanksgivings with the family, and a certain feeling of nostalgia sets in. Then you take your mess kit, which is like an oval opened up, and go down to the mess hall and get your Thanksgiving dinner thrown into the mess kit. It ends up with the turkey and carrots all mixed. The cooks do a great job of trying to make it a festive meal, but when you mix it all together with the gravy in the mess kit, it's sort of like mush. I do remember that.
Sag.
Thanksgiving mush.
Sag.
Actually, every Thanksgiving, my dad takes all the leftovers and makes it into what he calls Thanksgiving pie, which is essentially Thanksgiving
Pie.
in a dish that's baked.
All right, here we go.
And I actually maybe prefer it to the original meal. Of course, he is making that Thanksgiving Day mush or Thanksgiving pie in a level oven, a luxury not afforded to Navy cooks.
No.
I was on submarine duty in the Pacific in the year 1943. We were in the area off the coast of the Philippines. I remember having a complete turkey dinner on Thanksgiving. While the turkeys were cooking, the submarine took a dive. We went down too steeply,
no.
and the turkeys fell out of the oven onto the deck. The cook picked them up and put them back into the oven, and we ate them regardless of what may have gotten on them as a result of their fall.
The 5-second rule is applicable in the Navy, okay? It's not only applicable, it's a way of life.
That meal was so good. And it wasn't just the Navy that got a big Thanksgiving Day
That
meal, whether it had been on the floor or
salty,
not. No, every
added
branch of
flavor.
service
And everything is loaded with salt. Everything is loaded with... Oh, no, I gotta stop. There we go.
got to replace their daily monotonous C and K rations with turkey and cranberry sauce on that day, though it was not an easy feat to accomplish. For instance, in 1942, U.S. Navy transport planes had to fly under threat of potential Japanese attacks above Guadalcanal in order to land at the recently captured Henderson Field so that they could deliver frozen turkeys to the Marines on the island. In addition to the turkey, every man got a cold bottle of Pepsi, and the cooks made some massive cakes. There's actually a picture of Lieutenant Colonel W.W. Stickney as he cuts one of the cakes using the sword of a Japanese officer. Though even with pilots willing to brave enemy
I'm not in the middle of an earthquake, I just have a cat that doesn't know how to stop running across my desk.
fire to deliver Thanksgiving, sometimes to men in the Pacific, it just was not in the cards. On Thanksgiving Day, we made our landing on Leyte Island in the Philippines very early in the morning. We therefore missed our dinner aboard ship. Somewhere down the beach from where we landed, the Navy sent us ham and cheese sandwiches. My buddy happened to get one of the sandwiches and brought it back to our area. I was complaining to him for not bringing one back for me when he started having stomach cramps.
Yep.
At this point, I shook his hand and thanked him for not bringing me a sandwich.
Oh, that sounds even worse.
Yeah, there you go, buddy.
And it wasn't just in the Pacific that getting turkey to the men was difficult, because as Allied troops pressed in on the German homeland in 1944, supply lines in Western Europe had become stretched thin. But as I mentioned, the US government had made this commitment to get a Thanksgiving dinner to everyone in service. And the general opinion was that irrespective of the morale value of a holiday meal, failure to meet a widely publicized commitment would have a very unfavorable effect. And so began the Great Turkey Lift.
What a
of
good meal does
1944.
to a person.
Huh?
What a good meal does to a person.
Yeah. Yeah. Hold on a second. Can you please... I'm just talking to my cat real quick. Can you please not... It would be so appreciated on so many levels if you would stop running back and forth.
First thing that the War Department had to do was get a bunch of turkeys. Now, turkeys were one of the foods that hadn't been rationed, but that year there was a serious shortage of turkeys because the military gobbled them all up. So those on the home front had trouble finding their own Thanksgiving turkeys, and so that led to headlines like "Turkey Black Market Spread All Over City." As housewives fought frantically and often futilely for the precious bird, a rash of OPA violations was breaking out all over town. But despite the illicit turkey trade, the U.S. military did get their hands on 3.2 million pounds of turkey and then proceeded to put all their eggs into one basket.
Oh my God!
Or
That's a
all
lot
their
of turkey
into one ship. In October of 1944,
Man,
the merchant vessel
US military
SS
could
Great...
do that for Thanksgiving for everyone.
Get off. Stop pawing at that. You know what that is? You're gonna be a shot kitty.
Republic left New York City with all of the turkey meant to feed the troops in Europe. On November...
That was one U-boat away from being a very bad day.
18th, it arrived in France and transferred all those turkeys to the cold chain, a fleet of refrigerated trucks which ran 24 hours a day back and forth to the front lines. They distributed the turkey along with several other dishes to the nearly 2 million men and women who were in the American forces in Western Europe at the time. Now, some didn't receive the meal until a few days after Thanksgiving, but overall it was seen as a triumph and really appreciated by those in the field. Thanksgiving dinner. There were always turkeys and pies and everything you would have at home. The food was often cold if you were in the field. Thanksgiving Day, 1944, the Ozark Division had just broken through the Siegfried Line at Aachen, but it was Thanksgiving. There was at least one incident where delivering the turkeys to the front line turned out not to be a blessing. It was in the Hütgen Forest, a dark and densely wooded area along the Belgian-German border. And on November 23, 1944, during some of the most intense fighting, First Lieutenant Paul Boch got a call from his captain letting him know that there was a delivery of turkey dinners coming to him for every man in his outfit. And in his memoir, Boch recounts this phone call. "Are you guys nuts? It's almost dark and my carrying parties have already made this trip up the hill with rations and water. I can't send them up there again. Besides, they can't feed a hot meal in the positions they're in now. Good God, they're right on top of the Jerry's." But the voice on the other end of the line said this order came from General Eisenhower himself and it needed to be followed. Besides, you don't want all of your men to miss out on this Thanksgiving dinner that every other man in the division is...
So, explain.
Okay. So
I am
basically,
pleb.
So basically, this is an example of best intentions, lowest intelligence. Okay, it is nighttime.
Right.
It is nighttime ops. They're fighting the Germans at extremely close quarters. Okay, they're fighting very close to each other, and now they are insisting on because Eisenhower ordered it, they're insisting that they set up this dinner for these troops that are engaged in active combat against a enemy that is in close proximity to them. Which...
Bruh.
And because Eisenhower ordered it, and what needed to happen is somebody a little bit higher up the chain of command would say, okay, but we're just going to leave these on ice until this engagement is over, and then the men can have their turkey. That's what should have happened, and I'm guessing that's not what happened here. So, you've heard of tea time, right? Like British tea time, right?
Yeah, where you basically...
It was a much bigger deal. And let me tell you how ridiculous this kind of crap can be, because officers demanded that tea time be a thing for British soldiers during the early stages of the war. So there were I can't remember the exact story, but there was this group of there was this group of people that were sitting there, and the Germans said that they were actively fighting the British, and then all of a sudden, they saw this truck coming up the road, and then all the British soldiers, it was just bewildering to them, stopped fighting, and the Germans stopped fighting in response. I don't, and if you're asking me for where the story is from, I can't remember. I'm sorry. But the British soldiers stopped fighting. The German soldiers were just sitting there watching them. They weren't fighting. The British were all getting tea. So, this happened.
The front line.
In the front lines. Now, like I said, I cannot prove the authenticity of the story, but if something like this did happen, it wouldn't be the strangest thing that I've actually witnessed firsthand, okay? It really would not be, okay? I've seen some really... If you ever wondered why I just suddenly get this, crick in my eyebrow watching some stuff and, you see a vein in my neck poke out, it's because I've actually seen something dumber than that happen. But,
military series with old men. You should start a series.
The first day goes by, and they do that, and the Germans are sitting there watching. The second days go by, the Germans watch again. The third day, they don't even start shelling. They wait until that truck comes up, and then they start shelling the truck about 2 minutes later. And that pretty much ended tea time. But, if it happened, it wouldn't be the dumbest thing I've ever seen in a war. It wouldn't be the dumbest thing I've seen in peacetime. It wouldn't be the dumbest thing this cat is doing. Cat.
It's like if the Spanish decided, hey, we need to do our hourly siesta.
I've seen dumber.
Okay.
I've seen dumber. Cat, can you please get down off the desk? Please and thank you. Hold on a second. Can you please and thank you? Okay, come here. There we go. All right. Please and thank you. Ow, stop kicking me. Stop kicking me. Okay, come here. You can sit right here with me. Okay? You can get all the pets that you want. Is that okay with you? Can you stop running across the back of my desk making it look I'm in the San Andreas area? Please? War crime cats. What can I say? Here we go. Ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
Ow. Okay, you're clawing me. Get down. Ow, you're clawing me.
Is getting, right? To which Paul Boach said, of course I want to see them get a hot meal.
Right.
I want to see them get 3 hot meals a day and a dry bed every night and a babe to sleep with.
Now that's a commanding officer for you right there.
But let's save the turkey until they can pull back where they can enjoy it. Who the hell knows it's Thanksgiving except some silly bastard in the rear who gets hot meals anyway and just wants a change of diet.
Right.
But the order, ridiculous as it was, had to be followed. And so he gathered a group of men to go fetch the turkey dinner and bring it up the hill back to the other men, all under the cover of darkness, but all still within line of sight of the German army. And as soon as they started heading back up that hill, German artillery opened fire. And Betch recalled the incident. 7 men had been wounded and 3 killed. An awful price to pay for a Thanksgiving dinner that nobody wanted to eat.
Like I said, not the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Not the dumbest thing I've seen, not the dumbest thing I've heard of.
Oh my god. It's like if someone now is like, hey, we need to give everyone this and this. I'm like, I understand. But we're not in the position to do that.
All that had to happen was somebody with a fraction of a spit of intelligence to sit there and go, okay, the general said this, but there are extenuating circumstances. So we are going to follow the order, but we're going to do it at a time where it's not going to get men killed.
Because they were doing
more
fine.
Uplifting things.
They were doing fine. For being in combat, they were doing fine, but then they had to do that. So these guys who were actively engaged and I can't think of a time I'd want a satisfying meal less. That is something I want to sit there and enjoy less than when I'm getting shots and artillery rained down on me. I can't think of a time I'd want to sit down and be like, man, you know what would be great? Turkey and cranberry. But all that group needed was somebody was somebody major or higher to just sit there and be like, look, we know what the general said, but there's the German artillery over there. There's the German army over there. If we start trying to do this in front of them, there's going to be a problem. So those guys that were sitting up there on that hill watched 10 of their buddies get shelled to hell. That probably...
Thanksgiving Day story took place a couple years earlier before the Normandy invasion, as the British played host to Americans. And they set up a bunch of Thanksgiving Day meals all over the country, knowing how important this holiday was to them. They even lent Westminster Abbey to the Americans for a Thanksgiving Day service.
Aww.
The Abbey was crowded to the doors, uniforms dominating both our own and British. It was a very impressive gathering. Upon the conclusion of this service, we had a few moments before going to the Dorchester for lunch. The American Society in London gave a big Thanksgiving dinner at which the guests numbered somewhere around 600. It was a real Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh man, just one thing after another today. Here we go.
Turkey, chestnuts, cranberry sauce, and all the rest of it, winding up with pumpkin pie and mince pie and ice cream. This was followed by a Thanksgiving reception at Buckingham Palace with the royal family, Winston Churchill, and the King and Crown Prince of Norway. This, of course, was only attended by the top brass, but still, it's pretty cool. Also, there is an old newsreel of the event at Westminster Abbey with some amazing commentary.
Thanksgiving Day is the great celebration across the Atlantic. It is the day when hard-hearted businessmen stop grinding the faces of the poor and think tenderly of their white-haired mothers. It is the day when old gentlemen of wealth chat chummily with beggars on a seat in Central Park. In fact, O. Henry and Thanksgiving are to America what Dickens and Christmas are to Britain.
And while I wouldn't put it exactly like that, it is a very important holiday for us Yanks. So important that it was paramount for the U.S. government to deliver Thanksgiving to the troops even during the midst of World War II. Though they wouldn't be able to have that Thanksgiving dinner if I don't finish this oyster dressing. So for this recipe, what you'll need is 1 pound of day-old white bread. A popular bread to use at the time was Wonder Bread, so
Wonder
that's
Bread,
what I'm going to use.
I've never
a quarter
had
teaspoon
Wonder
dried
Bread.
thyme.
It's actually good. I actually like it. The kind of bread that we had in the Navy was bread.
1.5 teaspoons dried sage, 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, a 1/4 cup of diced onion, 1 cup of chopped celery, a 1/4 stick or 28 grams of butter, and a 1/2 cup of canned oysters. Also, the original recipe calls for 20 pounds of bread, so can you just imagine how much stuffing that would make?
A lot.
Also, I think that this may be the least seasoned stuffing I've ever come across. Either way, cut the bread into little
Welcome to the military.
Salty as
cubes
shit,
and then
too.
mix it with the thyme, sage, salt, and pepper. Then take half of the butter and heat it in a pan and fry the onions and celery until they've turned translucent, about 8 to 10 minutes. Add those to the bread and then add all of that into a buttered baking dish and pour the remaining butter melted over the stuffing. Then put that in the oven and bake for 1 hour at 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 175 Celsius. Now when this finally comes out of the oven, it's going to be really, really dry. And that, I would think, is because it's going to be stuffed into a turkey or a chicken and then roasted, which will make it much more moist. The thing is, the recipe says it doesn't need to be stuffed. It can just be eaten as is, making it the driest dressing ever. Either way, just before serving, heat up the oysters with their juice until the edges start to curl, and then add them minus the juice to the stuffing. And here we are, a Thanksgiving meal from a World War II battleship. Now, I didn't roast an entire turkey the way that it was done on the battleship. It's pretty much the way that it's done today, but I did make a turkey breast just so I would have something to eat with this cranberry sauce. As you can see, it's very jiggly, even more so and more red, I think, than what you get in a can. Here we go. Okay, that's really good.
I've never made that expression or made that sound while eating anything in the Navy.
Yeah.
So I really, really like that. But whoa, is it sweet?
Yes.
It uses a lot more sugar
So
than,
much
than your
sugar, though.
typical cranberry sauce today. It's almost like dessert, which I don't mind in a cranberry sauce, frankly, but I think it might be too sweet for some people.
At least the
But
cranberries don't look fake.
It's a wonderful color. The texture is really nice, and you do get that cranberry flavor. Now onto the sweet potatoes. So they are very, very soft.
so soggy.
They spent quite a
They're very soggy, and they have about 10 pounds of sugar in them, too.
bit of time cooking, so makes sense. Here we go. They're not as sweet as I thought they would be with all that syrup. They are firmer as well than I would expect.
That's surprising.
If we used fresh sweet potatoes. I guess they just
Now, if you had used regular Navy sweet potatoes, they might be, yeah.
will never absorb enough liquid, but they're good. I'd go with regular sweet potatoes though. And finally, the oyster stuffing. Now I gotta say, this is the driest stuffing I done ever had. And it, you know, like I said, it did say that it could be made without actually stuffing the bird, but also I would probably chop up the oysters, and maybe they did and just kind of left it out of the recipe. Really
No.
big. But here we go. It's really dry. But the flavor is surprisingly good.
It's really dry.
Sounds, old man, to you, that's like, sounds like a normal day here.
See, I thought
let
it
it
was
play.
going to have way too little flavor. I would have usually put more spices, more onions, more everything. And I still probably would, but they do come through. So you are getting that, and you do get that kind of crunch from the bread. It's not super soft. It's just definitely a lot drier than I would like. Now, before I wrap up, I wanted to offer a Thanksgiving message,
typical.
not from me, but from FDR, President of the United States in 1943. May we, on Thanksgiving Day and on every day, express our gratitude and zealously devote ourselves to our duties as individuals and as a nation. May each of us dedicate his utmost efforts to speeding the victory which will bring new opportunities for peace and brotherhood among men. Happy Thanksgiving, and I will see you next time on Tasting History.
I'm so sorry about the earthquakes that keep on happening on my screen. My cat will not stop. There's no point to you running around this much. Do you realize that? Come here.
The zoomies.
She doesn't have zoomies. She just has, I'm just being difficult for the sake of being difficult. She just wants pets. That's all she wants. She gets them, and then she's like, okay, get away from me, human. And then she's like, okay, I'm coming back now. And it's like, she can't just come up to my side and get the pets. She has to run all the way across the back of my computer to get them. She's ridiculous. Anyhow. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Valk.
Yes.
So, I gotta get back to that powdered egg kind of thing, okay? Imagine a pan of, like, mustard yellow stuff that somebody takes a spatula to and just rigorously scrapes it off, and that's your eggs. It's like putty of egg. That's what it is. Get out. Get out. Get out. McDonald's eggs are better than Navy eggs, okay? McDonald's eggs are better than Navy eggs.
Wait, so you've had powdered eggs?
Yes!
Oh, God.
Yes! Yes! Eventually you just get, like... Eventually you just get used to it.
That's like minor war crimes right there. Oh, my God.
Ain't nothing minor about that war crime, okay? Ain't nothing minor about that war crime. It was... Like... Oh, man. I still... Like, that to this day remains my worst memory of the military. That Thanksgiving. That Thanksgiving
Aw.
remains to this day my worst memory of the military. Like, not being deployed wartime, not being gone for almost all the year, not missing not missing holidays, birthdays, nothing like that. That day was my lowest point. That day was the one day I will always say was the singular most depressing day that I had in the military. And just cold turkey sandwich, and that called my parents. Everybody sounded like everybody said hey, and then I went out on a dark dock and stood in the middle of a windstorm with like the ocean spray just hitting me, and just cold, dark, alone for hours, while I knew my family was sitting at home, warm,
listening to like Thanksgiving like style music.
It was the absolute worst. It was the absolute worst. And you were like, I was just sitting out there. I felt completely dead inside, and it was the worst feeling ever. It was the worst feeling ever. Like, that was the worst. Flat out worst. Well, that's about it for me. Val, you got anything else to say?
I'm just gonna say Thanksgiving was a lot more different. I mean, we have turkey, but it was more Filipino. But that's
really, a Filipino Thanksgiving is more Filipino. Imagine my shock, Valk, at these words. I'm stunned. Hey!
I'm gonna throw
you guys!
Lumpia at you.
Yeah, you guys.
I'm gonna throw lumpia and my rice hat at you.
Why?
Because why not?
We're leaving. Yeah, War Pugs.
All right.
War Pugs. Check out Tasting History. Tasting History with Max Miller. All his links are in the description down below, as well as his promotion for Babbel. Subscribe to him. Subscribe to me. All my links are going to be in the description down below. So for myself and Valk, say goodbye.
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and also to everyone that doesn't celebrate a happy Thanksgiving. A happy fall harvest.
That's it.
Yep.
Goodbye.